Pawn Stars boss Rick Harrison paid a fortune for silver items because his dad was excited about them. Rick Harrison, the central figure behind the wildly popular television show Pawn Stars, has long been known for his sharp business instincts, keen eye for valuable antiques, and no-nonsense approach to negotiation. As co-owner of Gold and Silver Pawn Shop in Las Vegas, a business originally founded by his father, Richard Benjamin Harrison, in 1989 Rick built a reputation not only as a savvy entrepreneur but also as a man deeply rooted in family values and tradition. While the show often highlights dramatic appraisals, heated negotiations, and rare historical artifacts, there are moments off-camera that reveal a more personal, emotional side of Rick, one that transcends profit margins and market value. One such moment, though never formally featured on an episode of Pawn Stars, has quietly circulated among fans, crew members, and those close to the Harrison family. The time Rick paid significantly above market value for a collection of vintage silver items, not because they were exceptionally rare or historically significant, but because seeing them brought unmistakable joy to his aging father. It was a decision made not from a place of commerce, but from love, respect, and a desire to honor a man who had shaped both his life and his career. The story unfolds during a relatively quiet afternoon at the pawn shop, several years before Richard Harrison's passing in 2018. A customer walked in carrying a worn wooden case lined with faded velvet. Inside was a full set of antique sterling silver flatware and tea service serving spoons, butter knives, a gravy ladle, 2 matching teapots, one large, one smaller, a sugar bowl, creamer, and a decorative tray, all intricately engraved with floral patterns and delicate scrollwork. The pieces appeared to date back to the early 20th century, possibly the Edwardian era, and bore hallmarks indicating genuine .925 sterling silver content. The seller explained that the set had belonged to his great-grandmother and was part of an estate he was liquidating. He was asking $5,000, hoping to get a fair offer without the hassle of auctions or online listings. Rick examined the items closely, weighing each piece, checking for maker's marks, and assessing their overall condition. He consulted with his son, Corey Big Hoss Harrison, who had been taking on increasing responsibility at the shop, and briefly called in one of their trusted experts, a longtime appraiser specializing in antique silver and tableware. After careful evaluation, the consensus was clear. While the set was authentic and well-crafted, it wasn't particularly rare. The silver content alone gave it a melt value of around $1,800. Factoring in craftsmanship, age, and collector appeal, the team estimated a reasonable offer between $2,500 and $3,500. Anything beyond that would be considered generous, perhaps even reckless from a strictly financial standpoint. But then something unexpected happened. Richard Harrison, who at the time was in his late 70s and increasingly frail, had been sitting behind the counter reading the newspaper. Known for his dry wit, conservative demeanor, and no-frills attitude toward spending, Richard rarely showed overt excitement over inventory. He preferred military memorabilia, classic cars, and American history items tied to duty, sacrifice, and patriotism. Yet when the silver set was laid out under the glass display, something shifted. He looked up, paused, and slowly pushed himself to his feet. With deliberate steps, he made his way over to the counter, his eyes fixed on the gleaming pieces. "Well, I'll be," he murmured, picking up one of the serving spoons. "That's real workmanship." He turned the spoon gently in his hands, running his thumb along the handle. "Look at this engraving done by hand. You don't see that anymore." His voice softened. "My mother, she had a set like this. Not the same pattern, but close. She used it every Sunday after church. Always said if you're going to eat, do it right even if it's just beans and cornbread." Rick watched his father intently. This wasn't just nostalgia, it was reverence. For a brief moment, the tough-talking patriarch seemed transported back to a simpler time, to family dinners filled with dignity and routine. There was pride in his voice, a quiet acknowledgement of a generation that valued appearances not for show, but as a sign of self-respect. Without hesitation, Rick turned to the seller and said, "I'll give you $7,500. The room fell silent. The seller blinked in surprise. Corey raised an eyebrow. Chumley, the shop's eccentric employee, stopped mid-sentence and stared. Even the camera crew, accustomed to surprising offers, exchanged glances. That's more than I expected, the seller admitted. Rick nodded. It's yours if you want it. Corey leaned in. Dad, we talked about $3,000 maximum. That's double what it's worth. Rick didn't flinch. I know. But look at him. He gestured toward his father, who was now carefully examining the tea tray, pointing out the reinforced hinges and the quality of the plating. When was the last time you saw him light up like that? The deal was finalized. The seller left satisfied, unaware that the true value of the transaction wasn't monetary, it was emotional. The silver set was logged into inventory, placed in the vault, and never put on display. It wasn't listed for sale online. In the official records, it simply became another acquisition. But behind the scenes, it took on a different meaning entirely. In the weeks that followed, staff noticed a change. Richard began asking about the silver. On slow afternoons, Rick would retrieve the case from storage, and the two would sit together at a back table, polishing the pieces with soft cloths, sharing stories, and laughing in a way they hadn't in years. Richard recounted memories of growing up during the Great Depression, when having the good silver wasn't about wealth, but about maintaining dignity in hard times. He told me his mom believed you should treat every meal like an occasion, Rick later recalled in a reflective interview. Even if you only had a can of soup, you served it with care. Used real dishes. Real silver. It wasn't about impressing anyone. It was about honoring yourself. That conversation stayed with Rick. In a world where every item is scrutinized for resale potential and historical significance, this moment reminded him that value isn't always quantifiable. Some things matter not because they can be sold, but because they connect us to who we are and where we came from. You spend your whole life trying to prove you're a smart businessman, Rick said. You learn to spot fakes, negotiate deals, protect your bottom line. But the truth is, the most important lessons come from outside the ledger. They come from watching your father's face light up over a spoon. Eventually, Rick wrapped the entire collection and gave it to his father as a gift. Call it retirement silver, he joked. Richard laughed, a deep, rumbling laugh that echoed through the shop and pulled his son into a rare, heartfelt hug. After Richard passed away in June 2018, Rick faced the difficult task of sorting through his father's personal belongings. Among the flags, medals, photographs, tools, and old letters, he found the silver set, carefully preserved in its original case. Each piece had been individually wrapped in tissue paper, protected from tarnish and time. Tucked inside was a note in Richard's shaky handwriting. These remind me of home. Thanks for remembering what matters. Rick kept the set. It remains in his personal possession today, not for resale, not for public display, but as a private heirloom, a tangible connection to the man who taught him how to run a business and, more importantly, how to live a principled life. This story, though never officially aired on Pawn Stars, speaks volumes about the man behind the sunglasses and the counter. Critics often view the show as entertainment first and education second, questioning the authenticity of certain transactions or the dramatization of negotiations. But moments like this, the quiet, untelevised decisions, reveal a deeper truth about Rick Harrison, that beneath the persona of the shrewd pawnbroker is a son who loved his father deeply. The purchase of the silver set wasn't a business decision. It was an act of devotion. In paying well above market value, Rick wasn't losing money, he was investing in memory, in legacy, in the fleeting chance to bring joy to someone he admired. Interestingly, this wasn't an isolated incident. Over the years, there have been other subtle examples of Rick making choices based on sentiment rather than profit. He once bought a World War II dog tag not to resell, but to return it to the veteran's family. He acquired a signed Elvis Presley guitar because it reminded him of his youth, and he kept a firefighter's pocket watch from 9/11 as a tribute. These items weren't part of the shop's inventory, they were part of his heart. But the silver purchase stands out because it involved Richard, the foundation of both the business and the family. Known for his frugality and strict principles, I built this shop on $1 at a time. Richard rarely indulged in extravagance. So when he showed genuine delight over a set of old silverware, it carried profound weight. For Rick, paying extra wasn't wasteful, it was meaningful. It was a way of saying, I see you. I hear you. I remember what you taught me. This moment also reflects a broader evolution in Rick's character. Early seasons of Pawn Stars portrayed him as the dominant figure, confident, sometimes stern, always focused on the deal. As time passed, especially as his father's health declined, a softer, more reflective side emerged. He became more open about loss, more willing to acknowledge emotion, and more aware of life's impermanence. Employees at the shop have noted this shift. Chum Lee, despite his comedic role on the show, has spoken candidly about the final years with Richard. Rick changed after his dad got sick, he said in a podcast. He started valuing time differently. He'd tell us, "Say the nice stuff now. Don't wait. That silver thing." That was him living by that rule. The story also underscores the complex dynamics of family-run businesses. Running a shop with your father can be challenging, filled with disagreements, power struggles, and generational gaps. Rick and Richard clashed over management styles, customer service, and the direction of the business. But beneath the surface was mutual respect and deep affection. Richard taught Rick how to haggle, how to spot a scam, how to stand firm. Rick, in turn, modernized the business, embraced media opportunities, and expanded the brand far beyond Las Vegas. Their relationship evolved from employer-employee to partners, and ultimately, to equals. The silver purchase can be seen as a symbolic gesture in that journey, a son recognizing that his father's values weren't just about money, but about dignity, tradition, and family. Today, Gold and Silver Pawn continues to operate, with Corey taking on a larger leadership role and Rick focusing on writing, public speaking, and philanthropy. The shop still draws thousands of visitors each year, drawn by the fame of the show and the allure of history. But behind the scenes, the spirit of Richard Harrison endures in the way deals are approached, in the respect shown to customers, and in the unspoken understanding that some items are priceless. As for the silver set, it likely remains in Rick's home, brought out on special occasions: Thanksgiving, family gatherings, quiet evenings with Corey and his grandchildren. It's not about using the silver for meals, it's about keeping a legacy alive. Rick has often said that the most important lesson he learned from his father wasn't about business, it was about integrity. He always said, "Do the right thing, even when nobody's watching." That stuck with me. Paying $7,500 for a $3,000 set of silver may seem like poor business judgment. But in the unseen economy of the heart, it was a perfect exchange. Rick traded dollars for dignity, profit for peace, and commerce for connection. In a culture obsessed with net worth, ratings, and social media metrics, this story serves as a quiet reminder that the most valuable things in life aren't listed on balance sheets. They exist in moments, fleeting, fragile, irreplaceable. They're found in a father's smile, a shared memory, a handwritten note tucked inside a velvet-lined case. Rick Harrison didn't buy a silver set. He bought time. He bought joy. He bought the chance to honor a man who meant everything to him. And in that moment, no price was too high.